Author's Pav. The penthouse felt more like a showroom than a home glass and steel, black leather couches. Art that had never meant anything to the man who signed for it. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked over Seoul's glittering skyline. But inside, everything was still and silent, as if no one truly lived there. On the dining table, 3 untouched candles sat in a neat row I/N blue, the last one out, with a shaky breath. Dinner had gone cold an hour ago. She slid the plates back into the kitchen, covering them with foil like muscle memory. Her eyes flicked to the vintage clock on the wall. 10:43 p.m. He wasn't coming again. Her phone lay face up on the counter. The last message from the man she called husband, glowing mockingly on the screen. Jungkook, running late. Eat without me, no sorry. No explanation. No asking how her day had been, just an efficient, impersonal lineup, part of the machine. She stared at the message until her vision blurred, then turned the phone face down. Enough, she whispered to the empty kitchen. It has to be enough. The word echoed in the cavernous penthouse, bouncing off marble and glass. She wiped her hands on a dish towel, then walked past the framed photo in the hallway, the only one of them together, a wedding picture, her in a simple satin dress, bouquet clutched in both hands, him in a black suit, tie perfectly knotted, expression unreadable. The photographer had told him to smile. His lips had barely moved. Their marriage wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was a deal. Jeon Group had needed a clean family image after a scandal. Her father's small company had needed saving. Jungkook had needed a temporary wife who would sign whatever he put in front of her and not ask for more. She'd read every line of that contract, hands trembling. No clause about love, no clause about heartbreak, just dates, obligations, and a neat end point. 3 years. They were already past year 2. She'd gone into it telling herself she could handle it. She could live beside a man like him, a man who lived for his work, who called love a liability in every interview. As long as she remembered it was just business. She'd lied to herself somewhere between ironing his shirts and memorizing his coffee order, between waiting up for him and hearing his footsteps in the hallway at 2 a.m. She'd fallen in love with him, and he didn't even notice why/N walked into the bedroom they shared, but never really shared. His side of the bed was pristine, sheets barely used. Most nights he fell asleep on the couch, laptop open, tie loosened. She'd wake to the sound of the shower at dawn, the scent of his cologne filling the room for a moment before he disappeared into another day. Tonight, the bed was empty again. She walked to the wardrobe, opened her side. Her fingers lingered on the hangers. Cheap cotton dresses, mixed with a few expensive pieces Jungkook's assistant had ordered for optics. Dresses she'd worn to charity galas, standing quietly at his side like a lovely accessory. Her chest tightened. She grabbed a suitcase from the top shelf and set it on the bed. The sound of the zipper opening felt louder than the city outside. She started folding clothes, not all of them, just enough. Just what she'd brought into this marriage before it became. Whatever this was, her hands shook as she picked up one of his shirts, black, soft, sleeves rolled to the elbows. She'd fallen asleep wrapped in this once, too tired to change. His faint cologne clinging to the fabric. She pressed it to her face for a second, then put it back in his drawer. This wasn't hers to take. None of this had ever truly been hers. Her phone vibrated, her heart jumped. Stupidly hopeful, she flipped it over Jungkook. "I'll be home late. Don't wait up." A bitter laugh bubbled up her throat. The irony almost hurt. "This is me not waiting," she whispered one by one. She folded pieces of her life into the suitcase with each shirt, each pair of socks, each little thing. A memory surfaced. The first time she'd signed her name as Y/N Jeon. The first time he'd come home drunk enough to sit at the edge of the bed and talk about numbers and mergers instead of sleeping. The first time she'd made him coffee and he'd said, "This is exactly how I like it," like she'd cracked a code. The first time she'd realized she was happy just because he was in the same room, all one-sided, all hers. All ending. The front door beeped. She froze. Her eyes shot to the clock. 10:59 p.m. He was early. Author's POV. The sound of expensive shoes against marble came closer, each step steady, unhurried. A briefcase thumped onto the console table. Keys clinked in the crystal bowl. He shrugged off his coat in one smooth motion, fingers moving automatically. Jeon Jungkook didn't like surprises. He built his life around control. Controlled schedules, controlled deals, controlled risks. But as he loosened his tie and turned toward the hallway, a glint of silver on the bed in the bedroom doorway caught his eye. Suitcase open, half full. Y/N standing over it, holding one of her dresses like it burned. His eyes narrowed. His voice, when it came, was cool. "Going somewhere?" She flinched, turned. Their eyes met. Her fingers tightened on the fabric, knuckles white. "Yes," she said softly. "I am A/N. He thinks it's another problem to manage. She's done being managed." Author's POV. For a moment, neither of them moved. The city lights painted Y/N's face in soft gold and shadow. Her eyes looked too big, too bright. A storm barely held back. The open suitcase on the bed looked like a wound in the middle of their carefully curated life. Jungkook slipped his tie off completely, tossing it onto the armchair. "What is this?" he asked, nodding at the suitcase. "Luggage," she said, voice flat, kind of obvious. He exhaled slowly, the way he did when a meeting went off script. "Be difficult. Y/N if you want to travel. Tell my assistant. She'll book the jet." "I don't need your jet," she said. "I need my life back." Something in his expression flickered barely, then vanished. "We have a board meeting with the investors' wives next week," Jungkook said. "You can't just vanish without notice. It'll raise questions." She let out a humorless laugh. "Of course that's what you're worried about." "I'm worried about optics," he corrected. "We made a deal. You know what's at stake." "I know exactly what's at stake," Jungkook Y/N said quietly. "You made sure of that. I know how much your image matters. I know how much Jeon Group matters. I know the exact number you wired to my father's company to save it. I know every clause in that contract we signed." She swallowed. "And I know," she added, "that nowhere in that contract does it say I have to stay when I'm breaking." His jaw tightened. He took a step into the room, then another. "Breaking," he repeated. "From what?" "You have a roof over your head, more money in your account than you've ever seen, staff who would do anything you ask. You don't have to work. All you have to do is attend a few events and sign your name when needed. That hurt more than any slap. So that's all I am to you, she said, an accessory and a signature. He frowned, irritation edging into his voice. Don't twist my words. I don't need to twist them, she whispered. You've been saying the same thing since the day we got married. This is practical. This is convenient. This is just for 3 years. Your favorite one. She let out a shaky breath. Love is a liability. I don't have time for that. The words sounded like a quote she'd memorized because he looked away for a second, gaze landing on the framed wedding photo on the wall. We were honest from the start, Jungkook said. You knew what this was. Yes, she replied. I knew it was a contract. I just didn't know how it would feel to live with someone who treats me like one. Silence, thick and rain, began to pepper the windows, soft at first. Why now? He asked finally. Why decide to do this now? Because today was the 3rd time he'd forgotten her birthday. Because she'd eaten dinner alone in a dress she'd bought with her first paycheck years ago, hoping he'd at least notice. Because she'd overheard him on the phone with a director, saying, my marriage is purely strategic. Don't worry, it won't affect the company. She stared at the carpet, nails digging into her palms. Because I finally realized you're not going to wake up one day and see me, Y/N said, and I'm tired of standing in front of a man who can calculate risk in seconds, but can't be bothered to ask if his wife is happy. His brows knitted. Happiness is subjective. Stability isn't. I gave you what I promised, a secure life. In return, you agreed to stand by my side. That's how deals work, Y/N. Deals, she repeated softly. Is that what you call it when I fall asleep waiting for you and wake up to an empty bed when I show up to events and you introduce me as my wife like it's part of your resume, not your life? He opened his mouth, closed it. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I know you don't love me, she said. I stopped expecting that a long time ago. But I thought maybe respect, maybe basic kindness, maybe a how was your day. That isn't about how my smile will look in photos. His chest felt tight, like his shirt collar had shrunk. You're overreacting, Jungkook said. This is the stress talking. Your father's business is finally stable. My company is expanding. And you want to throw everything away because I miss a few dinners. Her eyes glistened. That's the problem, she whispered. You really think all you've missed are a few dinners? Her fingers tightened around the dress she was holding. I'm not throwing your world away, Y/N said. I'm just stepping out of it. She turned back to the suitcase folded, the dress carefully placed it on top of the pile/N. POV shift. The moment he realizes she's not bluffing Jungkook Pav. He'd handled hostile takeovers, multi-million-dollar negotiations, courtroom battles he'd watched entire companies crumble, and rebuilt them from ash. Nothing had ever made his heart beat the way it did now, watching her put that dress in the suitcase. It wasn't the first time she'd been upset. He remembered vague flashes, her quiet. Are you coming home early tonight? Texts, the way her shoulders drooped when he said no, the faint smile she pasted on at events he'd always filed it under temporary discomfort. People adjusted. They always did. She hadn't. I'll have my lawyer review the contract, he said, the words feeling stiff in his mouth. We'll renegotiate terms. You can stay at a separate apartment if the penthouse feels suffocating. I don't want a separate apartment, she cut in. I want a separate life. He stared at her. "You talking about divorce?" he said. "Yes." The simple confirmation slammed into him harder than any bad quarter. His fingers twitched at his sides. "You not thinking clearly," Jungkook said. "We can take a few days. Go somewhere. Reset." She let out a broken laugh. "Go somewhere. Did you forget you hate vacations? You told a journalist last month you think time off is for people who don't know what they want." Annoyance sparked. "Don't throw my interviews at me. You know they twist words." "Not twisting anything," she said. "I'm just finally listening." She zipped the smaller compartment of the suitcase. The sound scraped against his nerves. He stepped forward, hand shooting out on instinct. His fingers wrapped around her wrist, firm, not hurting, not yet. "Enough," he said, voice low. "You've made your point. You're upset, I get it. But you're not leaving." She went very still. Slowly. She looked down at his hand on her skin, then up at him. "Let go, Jungkook." His grip tightened. "I said you're not leaving." Her eyes filled, but her voice was steady. "You don't get to decide that anymore." Y/N whispered. "You decided everything else. This one is mine." She tried to pull back. He held on. The rain outside grew heavier, streaking down the glass. "My wife," he said. "Walking out in the middle of our agreement isn't an option." Her lips trembled. "And you're my husband," she replied, "but you stopped acting like one a long time ago." She twisted her wrist. He could have held on. He didn't. His fingers fell away. She stepped back. Rubbing the red mark where his hand had been, he stared at it, at the faint imprint of his fingers, at the proof that he'd grabbed when he should have reached. "Tomorrow morning," she said softly, "I'll be gone before you wake up. The divorce papers will be on your desk. All I need is your signature." Something cold slid down his spine. "I'm not signing anything," Jungkook said. "We still have a year on that contract." She gave him a tired, shattered little smile. "This is the first time I'm asking for something that's not in the contract," Y/N whispered. "For once, could you think about me instead of a clause?" He didn't know how to answer that, because he didn't know how to be anyone other than who he'd trained himself to be. She picked up the suitcase, rolled it to the corner, then walked past him to the bathroom, closing the door quietly behind her. He stood in the middle of their bedroom, surrounded by everything money could buy alone for the first time. Jeon Jungkook had the sick, crawling feeling that he was about to lose something he couldn't replace. A/N. He tries to bury himself in work, like always, until the thought of waking up to an empty bed finally cracks him. Author's POV. The office was quieter than usual for a Thursday night. Most lights on the executive floor were dimmed. Only a few glowed behind frosted glass doors. The city spread out below, a web of headlights and neon. Jungkook sat behind his desk, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie forgotten in his pocket. His laptop screen glowed an icy blue. Numbers and charts reflecting in his eyes. He'd come here after their fight reflex. When things got messy, he worked. Work was predictable. Work was controllable. Work didn't lace its words with please and I'm breaking. He should have been reviewing the merger proposal. Instead, his mind kept replaying a different document. Divorce papers. on his desk, with her handwriting on the signature line. A headache pulsed behind his temples. He closed his eyes for a moment. Y/N, dragging the suitcase. Y/N, asking him to let her go. Y/N, saying, "For once, could you think about me instead of a clause?" He swore under his breath relationships were variables, emotions were distractions. He'd learned that watching his parents, his father bury himself in work, his mother twisting herself into resentment to get his attention, he'd promised himself he wouldn't repeat that cycle. He'd cut out the middleman. No love, no mess marriage as strategy, clean and contained. It had worked until her quiet laugh in his kitchen, her humming under her breath. While she watered the plants, the maid kept forgetting her sleepy "you're home" at 2 a.m. when he thought she'd be too tired to notice. He'd noticed all of it. He'd just refused to name what it did to him. His phone buzzed. His assistant. Reminder. Tomorrow 9 a.m. Breakfast meeting with Han Group. Mrs. Jeon's presence strongly recommended. He stared at the screen. Mrs. Jeon. Y/N. Would she even be there? Would he walk into the dining room to find the chair beside him empty and a set of crisp legal papers instead? His chest tightened. He stood abruptly, chair scraping back. He grabbed his coat. His team looked up as he strode through the open office. "Surprised, sir?" One ventured. "The hand file on my desk by morning," Jungkook said. His voice was cool, clipped. "I'll review it before the meeting." Leaving already?" another asked. "It's only," I said, "I'll review it in the morning," he repeated. "I have something more important to do tonight." They exchanged glances. He didn't care for once. He didn't care how it looked. He just knew one thing. If he went home tomorrow after she left, the penthouse would still be full of furniture, of art, of silence. But it would be empty in the only way that mattered. A/N POV shift. The desperate race, home. Jungkook POV. The drive, blurred city lights streaked past the windows. The hum of the engine barely registered over the pounding in his ears. He'd never rushed home before. Home was a place he slept, sometimes worked, sometimes hosted clients. Tonight, for the first time, home was where he might lose her. "Faster," he told the driver. "We're already faster," he repeated, when the elevator doors slid open onto the penthouse floor. He stepped out before the light finished blinking. His stride was long, purposeful, coat flaring behind him. The moment the door recognized his key code and beeped open, he knew something was different. The candles on the dining table were gone. The framed wedding photo lay face down on the console table. His heart thudded painfully. Y/N. He called. His voice echoed no answer. He moved through the living room into the hallway, checking each room with increasing urgency. Her study half empty, books missing from the shelves. Guest room, bed stripped. His chest squeezed. He reached the bedroom last. The door was half open. Inside, the lamp on her nightstand was on, casting warm light over the bed. The suitcase was upright. By the door closed next to it stood Y/N. Hair braided loosely over one shoulder, dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of the silk pajamas she usually wore. Her phone and passport sat on the nightstand. She looked up as he stepped into the doorway. For a second, neither spoke. Then he saw the envelope on the bed, his name written in her handwriting. His stomach dropped. dropped. "What is that?" he asked. "What do you think?" she replied quietly. He stepped forward, each movement feeling like he was wading through wet cement. He picked up the envelope. The weight of it was wrong too heavy for a few sheets of paper. He didn't open it, not yet. Instead, he looked at her. "So that's it," Jungkook said. "You pack a suitcase, leave me a letter, and vanish." Her eyes flickered. "Would you have preferred a press conference? You think this is funny?" he snapped. "No," she said, voice tight. "Nothing about this is funny. I don't know how else to leave a man who never really lets me arrive." The envelope crumpled slightly in his grip. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "A friend's place," she said. "Then I'll figure it out." "You don't have friends with security capable of what?" she cut in. "Protecting me from the big bad world. I survived just fine before you came along with your contracts and your black card, Jungkook." He felt something dark and unfamiliar twist inside him. Fear. "Why/n," he said, a hint of pleading slipping into his tone. "Think about this. You're leaving a stable life for what? Some tiny apartment with flickering lights and noisy neighbors. If it has someone who actually sees me, that's a trade I'll happily make," she said. The words hit him like a slap. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're just done?" She looked at him for a long moment. "I'm tired," Y/N whispered. "Tired of begging for crumbs and calling it love. Tired of walking into rooms where you're and pretending I don't care that you rarely look up. Tired of hoping one more dinner, one more event, one more year will change anything." Her voice broke on the last word. He took a step closer. She stepped back. His hand shot out of its own accord, fingers wrapping around the handle of her suitcase. "You're not walking out that door." Her gaze dropped to his hand, then rose again slowly, to his face dry. "And stop me, Jungkook," she said softly. "But this time, you're going to have to use more than contracts." A/N. The mask finally cracks. Cold CEO versus woman who refuses to be bought. Author's POV. The air between them felt electric. The city outside hummed. Rain streaked the windows in silver lines. Inside, two people who'd signed a carefully worded contract stared at each other like they had no script left. Jungkook's fingers tightened on the suitcase handle. "You think this is about money?" he asked. "About buying you? What else have you ever offered me?" Y/N shot back. "You write checks instead of apologies. You send flowers instead of coming home. You think wiring funds to my father's company gives you the right to treat my heart like it's a line item." His jaw flexed. "He never lied to you," he said. "From day one, I told you I don't do love. You agreed to that." "I agreed to survive," she whispered. "My father's business was drowning. You were the only one who threw a rope. I told myself I could handle being married to a man who didn't want a wife, just a partner on paper." Her throat bobbed. "I didn't plan on falling in love with you somewhere between faxing your contracts and ironing your shirts." The words landed like a blow. Love falling with him. His grip on the suitcase faltered for half a second before he caught himself. "You knew what you were signing up for," Jungkook said, but the conviction was fading from his voice. "People don't change overnight," she laughed, a small, aching sound. "That's the thing, Jungkook. You did change. You just never admitted it." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" She took a step closer, eyes blazing despite the tears. who waited outside the hospital with me when my father had surgery, even though you had a board meeting. Y/N asked. You sat in that plastic chair for 6 hours and argued on the phone with your shareholders, but you stayed. You didn't have to, he shifted. We had an agreement. Your father's health effects. Jeon Group's image, I know, she said, but you didn't have to hold my hand in the hallway. You didn't have to bring me coffee the way I make it. You didn't have to sit in silence with me at 3 a.m. just to keep me from falling apart. His throat tightened at the memory her head on his shoulder. Hospital lights too bright. The taste of stale coffee and fear. You think I didn't notice, she continued. When you started coming home 10 minutes earlier than usual, when you bought a second mug because you didn't like sharing, but always rinsed mine and put it next to yours. When you left your tie on the bed instead of the couch, so I'd wake up thinking you'd slept beside me, even when you hadn't. He swallowed hard. I noticed every small way you tried not to care, Y/N whispered, and every small way you failed. The words lodged under his ribs, like shards of glass/N. POV shift. His facade shatters. Jungkook Pavahi was used to being dissected by competitors, by analysts, by journalists. He wasn't used to being seen, not like this. Not by her he'd thought he was subtle thought. He could change routines, come home earlier, linger in the kitchen while she cooked, memorize the sound of her laugh from the hallway, and still claim he didn't care she'd seen through all of it. He cleared his throat. His voice came out rough. It doesn't change the fact that this marriage started as a strategy. It doesn't, she agreed, but it does change what it became. She looked at him like she was waiting for something. He realized she was waiting to see if he had the courage to say it, to admit what he'd been running from fear clawed at his chest. Love was messy love, was compromise love, was watching his mother shatter. Every time his father chose work over her, then watching her weaponize her hurt. Until every dinner was a battlefield he'd sworn never to give anyone that kind of power over him. But Y/N she already had it. He felt it now, in the way his heart hammered at the thought of her walking out with that suitcase. Right, Jungkook said slowly. I changed. I started caring. The word tasted strange on his tongue. He forced himself to continue. I care when you eat alone. I care when you fall asleep waiting for me. I care when you don't text me goodnight. I care when you smile at everyone except me, because I know I put that distance there. Her eyes widened, surprise flickering across her face. He took a step forward, dragging the suitcase with him until it bumped against his shin. His free hand reached out, fingers wrapping gently, then more firmly around her waist. She sucked in a breath. Jungkook, I care, he repeated, stronger this time. More than I should, enough that it terrifies me. His fingers flexed at her waist. Love makes people stupid, he said. Makes them make bad deals, miss red flags, sacrifice things they shouldn't. Her brows knit. Is that really what you think? It's what I've seen, he said. My father chose work over love. My mother chose love over herself. They both ended up miserable. I told myself I'd never let feelings compromise me like that. His voice dropped. And then you moved into my house with your 2 suitcases and your terrified smile and your ridiculous determination to remember everyone's names, Jungkook whispered. And suddenly, every decision I made, I was thinking, how will this affect her? He laughed once, broken. I sat in that hospital because I couldn't stand the idea of you getting bad news alone, he said. I stopped traveling on your birthday because the one time I did, I came home to a cake in the trash and a woman who smiled like it meant nothing. A tear slipped down her cheek. He caught it with his thumb. I'm not good at this, he confessed, but don't ever say I don't feel. I feel too much, especially when it comes to you. Her lips trembled. Then, why didn't you say it? She whispered. Why did you let me believe I was the only one drowning? Because admitting it made it real. Because saying it out loud meant he could lose it. I thought if I said it, he answered honestly, it would give you the power to leave whenever you wanted and take half of me with you. She let out a disbelieving laugh. And what do you think you're risking right now? His grip on the suitcase tightened until his knuckles went white. Everything, Jungkook said hoarsely. Because if you walk out that door, I'm not sure I know who I am without you anymore. The raw admission hung between them. He'd never sounded less like a CEO and more like a man/N. He can't undo the past, but he can decide what kind of husband he wants to be now. Authors, Pav, silence pressed in on them outside. Thunder rumbled faintly, the storm rolling further away. Inside, the real Storm was standing at the foot of the bed with his hand on a suitcase, and his heart in pieces. Y/NS fingers hovered near his, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her skin, not quite touching. This is the first time you've said any of this, she whispered. In 2 years. I know, he said. I'm late. You're very late, she agreed softly. Do you know how many nights I stared at the ceiling and told myself, it's just a contract, calm down, you're being dramatic, he swallowed. How many times I almost asked for a divorce and then backed out because I didn't want to see that relief on your face. She continued, voice breaking. How many times I looked at you and thought, he doesn't need you. He doesn't want you. You're an obligation with a ring on. That's not. I know that now, she cut in gently, but you never gave me a reason to think otherwise. He flinched. She stared at the suitcase at some point. Y/N said, I stopped being scared of losing you and started being scared of losing myself. That's when I packed. Her honesty hurt because he understood that fear he'd lived his life avoiding it. Tell me what you want, Jungkook said quietly. From me, from this marriage. No filters, no contract, just you. Her eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected that. I want a partner, she said slowly. Not a boss, not a benefactor, not a man who only remembers he has a wife when a camera is pointed at him. I want to be asked about my day and actually listened to. I want you to come home because you want to, not because the calendar says family dinner. I want to be allowed to be angry when you hurt me without feeling like I'm jeopardizing a business deal. She hesitated and, she whispered, cheeks flushing. I want to be loved, not in press releases, not in vague gestures your assistant planned. I want to be loved by you, fully, messily, honestly. The word hung in the air again, love. I can't promise I'll be perfect at it, Jungkook said. His voice shook. I can't promise I won't screw up. But I can promise. He took a breath. I can promise to try, to learn, to let it matter more than deals and interviews and shareholders. He stepped closer, dropping his hand from the suitcase to her waist again, fingers sliding around to the small of her back. She shivered, his other hand cupped her jaw, thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. "Stay," he said, the plea raw now. "Give me one chance to prove I can be more than the man you married on paper." Her gaze searched his. "What if trying isn't enough?" she whispered. "What if you wake up in a month and decide this is too much, and you go back to using work as an excuse? Then you leave," he said simply, "and I won't stop you next time." Her breath hitched. "Why?" she asked. "Because then you'll know I meant it," he replied. "That I didn't trap you. That you chose to stay tonight." He leaned his forehead against hers. "I don't want you here because of some contract. Why/n, Jungkook murmured. "I want you here because you looked at this life and at me and still said, yes." Him. Tears spilled over her lashes. He kissed them away, soft, careful, nothing like his reputation. "Jungkook," she whispered. He pulled back just enough to see her face. "Let me start now," he said. "Let me show you what it looks like when I put you first." "How?" she asked, almost challenging. He dropped his hands from her waist, stepped back. It felt like ripping his own skin slowly. He grabbed the suitcase handle again and pulled it away from the door. He rolled it back toward the wardrobe, opened it one by one. He lifted her clothes out, smoothing the wrinkles with his palms, hanging each piece back in its place. Every movement was deliberate, a wordless statement. "You can leave any time you want," Jungkook said quietly, hanging the last dress. "But I won't be the one to pack your life for you. Not anymore." He closed the wardrobe, turned to her. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "I'll cancel the hand meeting. I'll call the board myself and tell them the CEO is taking a day off. The tabloids can gossip. The investors can complain. I don't care." Her eyes widened. "You never cancel. I'm starting small," he cut in. "First, one day, then more." He took a step forward again, closing the distance between them until she had to tilt her head back to keep meeting his eyes. "I'm going to spend tomorrow with my wife," Jungkook said. "Not my accessory, not my contract, my wife, and I'm going to keep doing it until you believe that's what you are to me." Her heart twisted, her rational brain screamed that words were easy. But this, watching him take apart the exit she'd built for herself, not to trap her, but to offer to build something new, hit deeper than any boardroom promise. He lifted a hand to her face again. "May I?" he asked softly. It took her a second to realize what he meant. Her answer came out as a whisper. "Yes." His mouth found hers. The kiss wasn't polite or practiced. It was years of pressure snapping, a slow, tentative brush at first, like he was afraid she'd vanish. Then deeper, more desperate when she didn't pull away. His hand slid from her jaw to the back of her neck, fingers threading into her hair, holding her like she was the only solid thing in his world. His other hand settled fully at her waist, pulling her flush against him. She gasped into his mouth, fingers clutching at his shirt. He swallowed the sound. The room tilted, time blurred when they broke apart, both breathing hard. His eyes were darker than she'd ever seen them. "Don't leave tonight," Jungkook whispered, thumb stroking the skin just under her bottom lip, where it had swollen slightly from his kiss. "Don't take my heart, rip it out, and walk into the rain with it." Her pulse fluttered. "Assuming you still have it," she tried to tease, voice unsteady. He gave a broken little smile. I'm assuming it's been yours for a while, he said. I'm just done pretending it isn't. A/N. One last test. Will he choose love when it costs him what he's always put first? Author's POV. Morning came with pale light, and the faint sound of rain easing off for the first time in months. Y/N woke up to warmth beside her. Not a pillow, not a neatly folded tie. Jeon Jungkook lay on his side, facing her, one arm tucked under his head, the other draped over her waist, as if it had always belonged there. His hair was a mess. His usually sharp features were softened by sleep. She watched his chest rise and fall. Something inside her loosened. He stirred, lashes fluttering. His grip on her waist tightened instinctively. Don't, he muttered, voice rough. She blinked. Don't what? His eyes opened slowly. Don't disappear, he said. You were gone. In the dream, her throat closed. I'm still here, she whispered. His gaze swept over her face like he was checking for cracks. What time is it? He asked. She glanced at the clock. 8:12, he cursed softly. Hand meeting. He reached for his phone on the nightstand, thumb hovering over his calendar app. Then he stopped. He looked at her, then at the suitcase. Still open, but empty, then back at her. His thumb moved. He pressed a different name. Mr. Han, he said when the line connected. Jeon Jungkook. I'm afraid I have to reschedule this morning's meeting. No, everything is fine with the project. This is personal, yes. I understand the inconvenience. I'll compensate you for the delay. Y/N watched him apologize, watched him choose for the first time. Work waited for the first time. She didn't. He hung up, turned back to her. There, Jungkook said, first offering. She gave him a small smile. Your board is going to riot. He shrugged, sliding closer until their foreheads almost touched. They'll live, he said. If they don't, I'll buy them a spa day. She laughed despite herself. Silence settled over them again, calmer this time. What about the contract? She asked quietly. My father, the company. I'll make sure your father's business is secure, contract or not, he said. I should have done that regardless, not tied it to your willingness to live in limbo. Her eyes burned. I was selfish, Jungkook admitted, voice low. I told myself I was saving everyone by making our marriage practical. Really, I was just saving myself from being vulnerable. You paid the price for that, she swallowed. I'm still scared, he said. Love is messy. It might make me hesitate in ways I'm not used to. It might make me soften when I'm supposed to be ruthless. It might make me cancel more meetings like this. His lips brushed her forehead. And I've decided, Jungkook murmured, that you're worth every bit of that mess. Her heart stuttered. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. I won't ask you to forget everything, he said. I won't pretend the last 2 years didn't hurt you. But I am asking for a chance to rewrite the years we have left. Not as a contract, as a marriage. She held his gaze. Do you love me? Y/N asked, no flinching, no turning away, no half-truths. His response came without hesitation. Yes, he said. I love you. I tried not to. I failed completely. Her chest felt too full. And you? He asked softly. Do you still? She exhaled shakily. I tried not to, she said, echoing his words. I failed too. A slow, fragile smile curved his lips. Then stay, Jungkook whispered. Let's fail together. On purpose this time. Her eyes filled She thought of the suitcase, of the envelope on his desk, still unopened, waiting. "Can we burn it?" she asked suddenly. He blinked. "What? The contract," she clarified. "The copy in your safe. The one in your study. I know you have at least 3. And the divorce papers in that envelope. I don't want our marriage to exist because of those." He studied her. Asking a man who keeps every receipt to burn legal documents, he said. She gave him a look. He sighed, then nodded. "Fine," Jungkook said. "We'll burn the damn contract. And we'll write a new one." Her brows rose. "A new one, a verbal one," he said. "You first." She hesitated, then smiled, a little wobbly. "I/Y/N," she began, tone half teasing, half serious. "Promise to tell you when I'm hurt, instead of stuffing it down and letting it grow into resentment." His hand squeezed hers under the blanket. Jungkook," he replied. "Promise to listen when you tell me you're hurt and not treat it like an inconvenience." She took a breath. "I promise," she continued, "not to vanish without trying one more time to talk." He swallowed. "I promise," he said quietly, "not to make you feel like you have to vanish to be heard." She blinked back tears. "And I promise," Y/N whispered, "to stay, as long as you keep choosing us over the version of yourself who thinks love is a liability." His eyes softened. "I promise," Jungkook said, "to never call love a liability again, especially not ours." He sealed it with a kiss later. In his study, he opened the safe, pulled out the original contract, the language that had bound them together. While keeping them apart, he handed it to her. "Last chance," he said quietly. "If you want to go, I won't stop you. I'll sign whatever you put in front of me. I'll make sure your father never has to worry about money again. You'll be free." She looked down at the document, at her name next to his, at the neat, printed lines that had defined her life for 2 years. Then she walked to the fireplacelet. A match held it to the corner. The paper caught slowly, orange eating white, curling words into ash. They watched it burn together. When it was gone, only the faint smell of smoke remained. He turned to her. "Now," he said softly, "if you stay, it's because you want me, not because a contract forced you to." Her eyes shone. "I'm staying," she whispered. "Not for Jeon Group, not for my father, not because I'm scared of starting over. I'm staying for you." Something in his chest finally unlocked. He stepped forward, pulling her into his arms with a surety he'd never allowed himself before. One hand splayed over her lower back, the other cradling the back of her head. "Mine," Jungkook murmured against her hair, the words no longer cold or controlling, but reverent, not as a clause, not as an asset, as my heart. She smiled into his chest. "And you're mine," she murmured back, not as a headline, as home. The cold CEO who once said he didn't need love held his wife in front of a dying fire, embers glowing softly, the ashes of their contract at their feet. For the first time, the penthouse didn't feel like a showroom dot. It felt like the beginning of a real story. One they hadn't signed, one they were finally choosing together. /N. He built a life where love was a liability. Until the night, her packed suitcase became the one risk he couldn't take. Some deals you sign on paper, the ones that last, you sign with your heart.